Part 45. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 441. Chapter 441. Something good is coming soon. I know, thank you, Grandma Eli. The children all replied with a smile. They also knew how to salute and say thank you, which made the village chief, Uncle Zhao, and others who were coming in smile. The village chief began to praise, "These children are really studying for nothing. They understand the rules much better than before." After speaking, he asked old Mrs. Lee, "Will Mr. Zhang come over for dinner tonight?" "I'm not coming," Mrs. Lee replied with a smile. "Mr. Zhang is giving the children questions. He said that before the winter vacation, he would take a test on the children. He also gave an explanation to everyone in the village. I will let you know later. Just send Shuiling a plate." The old men all laughed. "We invited Mr. Zhang to come over to teach, and we made a lot of money. He is so attentive to the children, and everyone is grateful." As he spoke, everyone entered the house together. Sister-in-law Lu and Huaniyang both brought the child over. At this moment, Lu Yang hugged Bai Pang's younger brother and showed off his kindness. "Look at my brother, how cute he is, and he can also spit bubbles." Ji Yi was not convinced. He hugged his sister and shouted, "Look at my sister, how cute she is. She can also." He lowered his head and tried to find the good points about his sister, but Ji Yin was holding a small bowl and eating salt and pepper shrimp happily, so he had no time to pay attention to his brother's competitive spirit. She raised her hand to grab a shrimp and stuffed it into her brother's mouth, which was considered as comfort. Ji Yi had no choice but to continue vaguely, "My sister can pick shrimps." Lu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "When my brother grows up, he will also be able to pick shrimps." "Humph, my sister has grown bigger by then, and can sew purses, write, and read. Then my brother can also practice martial arts, climb trees, and catch fish." Ji Yin clicked the crispy shrimp shells while listening to the two childish ghosts arguing. Grandma also said the day before yesterday that after Jiawen's brother gets married, in a year and a half, Ji Yi's brother will get married. Now it seems that Grandma is probably going to be disappointed. Brother Ji Yi hasn't grown up yet, and all he can think about is going out to make a living, so how can he find a wife? Do you want to marry a daughter-in-law and stay alone in an empty house every day? At that time, will widowed marriage and widowed parenting appear in our own homes? No, absolutely not, Ji Yinpo said with a sense of crisis. She put down the small bowl and lectured her two brothers in a gentle voice, "You are so childish, how will you marry a wife in the future? If you marry a daughter-in-law and you don't even know how it hurts, it's better not to marry at all." Ji Yi and Lu Yang's faces turned red. They didn't understand how coaxing their children to play could involve getting a wife. On the other hand, sister-in-law Lu and Aunt Wu were chatting away, and old Mrs. Lee was swaying with laughter. Old Mrs. Lee even snatched her granddaughter away and kissed her again and again. "Oh, we lucky girls, we are such little people. We worry about my brother getting a wife." Aunt Wu, who was holding the twins in her arms, was also smiling and wiping her tears. "Which girl will be very lucky if she marries into our family in the future? My sister-in-law will support my sister-in-law before she even enters the house." Ji Yi and Lu Yang's faces turned redder and redder, and they ran out like rabbits. Ji Yi was still shouting, "We don't want to marry a wife, let brother Jiawen marry him. We haven't had enough fun yet." It just so happened that Jia Huan came back early from the restaurant today and helped her fourth aunt cook. She also wanted to ask about the arrangements at home. After all, the wedding day is only half a month away. As a result, as soon as he entered the room after carrying the dishes, he was shouted at by two boys who made him confused. He blushed and asked, "What's going on?" Mrs. Lee took her granddaughter out of the house and rescued her grandson with a smile. "Don't worry about them, these two brats are too naughty, just let them be. After that, She pulled her grandson to sit down, and while everyone was there, discuss the trivial matters of getting married. This is the first happy event for the Li family's grandchildren, so of course there will be a lively banquet. In addition to all the folks in the village, Li Zheng from Deweishu and Zhuang, and a few well-known villagers from their village, we also want to invite a few members of Lu's Haiheng's family, and several of Li Zhenzhen's close friends also want to join in the fun. In addition, several shopkeepers Li Laosan met in Luoan. Taken together, there are about 16 banquet tables. The Li family has no shortage of ingredients, let alone chefs, so this is no big deal. The only difficulty is where to live. When I first built the yard, I thought that the main house plus the east and west wings would be enough to live in. But now that the family is getting married, although the young couple will not live here permanently, they will always have a room together. When you get married, you will be the bridal chamber, and when you come back occasionally in the future, you will also have a place to stay. We can't let the young couple share the same bed with their brothers. Mrs. Kui was the first to speak. Auntie, I don't come back often. It's a pity that the yard is empty. Why not give it to the children? From now on, everyone will be arranged to get married there. There are 6 whole rooms. I'm afraid it will be enough for Brother Cat to get married. No, no, Mrs. Lee quickly waved her hand and refused. I promised you that wherever you go, you will always be from our village, so we built this courtyard for you. I have things to do at home on weekdays, and I really can't arrange them. I can just stay here for 3 to 5 days. How can I occupy them all? Li Laoer also looked at Mrs. Kui and said, my mother is right, it really won't work. We can just find a place to build at home, but you and the Marquis's yard must not be touched. Mrs. Kui felt warm in her heart when she heard it, and said with a smile, then let me lend it to the children to live in. When our family builds a new yard in the future, the children can move out. Old Mrs. Lee still disagreed. No, how can anyone lend a yard to the children to start a family? Besides, in the future, you and Mr. Wen will get married. Ahem, cough, 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 cough. Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer were stunned after hearing what their mother said. They quickly coughed and immediately changed the subject. Li Zhensheng said, it's a pity that we only grow vegetables in the garden behind our house on weekdays. There is a vegetable field outside the village, and the whole village and the guests from the valley can't finish it. In addition, Fu Niuer Zhuangzi also goes there every now and then. Here are some baskets. So, this vegetable garden is dispensable. Why not clean it up and build an extra yard, enough to live in until all the boys get wives? That's a good idea. The village chief and Lu Biao smiled and nodded in agreement. It's just that the garden is not as spacious as the front, and the patio must be a bit narrow, Uncle Zhao added. Don't be afraid. The boys only come back occasionally to live here. In the future, they will all get married and become successful. Maybe they won't be able to come back for 3 to 5 years. Li Laoer also smiled and said, at least Grn will do it in the future. If you are sent away as an official, you won't be able to come back often. The village chief nodded, that's right. The unpromising boys stay at home all day long, while the promising ones have to go out and learn their skills. Uncle Zhao was also envious and sighed, we are just old, otherwise we would really like to follow Zhensheng to the south and see the endless sea and those foreign weirdos. You obey me, but I don't. The village chief waved his pipe and pot and shouted proudly, next time the fleet goes to Quanzhou, be sure to take me with you. That won't work. Li Laoer pretended to pull the village chief's sleeve, and pitifully kept him, Uncle, you are the backbone of our village. If you go to play, what will happen to the village? After the new year, land preparation will begin. Without you always in charge, no one would be able to eat the jade melons and golden fruits. The village chief was so happy that he took 2 puffs of his pipe and pot, and after holding up the shelf, he said, well, since the village can't live without me, I'll wait a little longer. Everyone was amused by the old boy and laughed, and the room was very lively for a while. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 442. Chapter 442 The Glory of All Women. Mrs. Kui, with her half-red cheeks, secretly glanced at the senior brother sitting opposite. Perhaps there was a connection between them. Mr. Wen happened to look over, and when their eyes met, their faces turned completely red. Everyone was chatting away, but in fact they had noticed their little actions and tried their best to hold back their laughter. Perhaps, after the family get married, the couple will have good news soon. Mrs. Li quickly chased her granddaughter away. Grandma is tired, let your aunt hold her for a while. How could Jiyan not know about Grandma's little plan to let her master's wife take advantage of her blessing? It happened that she was also a little thirsty, so she ran over, sat in the arms of her aunt, and asked her to pour her tea. Mrs. Kui brought the teacup and sipped Jiyan in small sips. For fear that she would choke, she pulled off the handkerchief to wipe her mouth. Mr. Wen couldn't help but be fascinated by it. If they also have a child, junior sister must be a good mother. Soon, the food was served, and there were still 2 tables inside and outside the room. The men were drinking and chatting in the main room, while the women were eating and entertaining the children. Sister-in-law Lu, Mrs. Kui, Huanayang, and Aunt Wu all congratulated Tao Hongying on the success of her private kitchen. These days, it is no longer easy for a farm woman to still be the master of the household without being beaten. Tao Hongying actually managed to occupy a place among the male chefs in a place like Zindu with her good cooking skills, and she was highly respected. This is not the glory of Tao Hongying alone, but the common glory of all the sisters of Sujintan and all the women of Tianwu. Tao Hongying was happy in her heart and said a few modest words, but her men kept picking up food for her mother-in-law and daughter. Without the support of her mother-in-law and the help of her daughter, she would not be as successful as she is today. Have a meal until it gets dark and then leave. Mr. Wen stayed at Li's house and slept on the same bed as Mr. Li. Mrs. Kui took Li Dianding's good news and returned to the next door. Needless to say, Mrs. Kui secretly delivered goods to Jiyan's small treasury. Sometimes it's small jewelry, sometimes it's good materials. In short, every time she comes to Broken Gold Beach, she's never empty-handed. In addition to providing food for the Li family, an extra portion will be prepared for the little niece. Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying naturally knew it, but they didn't stop it and couldn't stop it. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have already discussed that when Mrs. Kui and Mr. Wen get married, they will give a generous gift. Judging from today's situation, this generous gift will have to be prepared early. Perhaps the happy event is closer than they thought. Early on the next morning, Li Laosi carried a basket of food and a large package, and rode to the dock. Tao Hongying prepared the food, and Jiyan also added some fresh fruits. The package was the result of Mrs. Li saving for more than a month. It included wolfskin knee pads, a duck-down vest, and a duck-down mattress. Needless to say, this duck-down vest and mattress were also Jiyan's ideas. Lately, homes and restaurants have become the palace of fur ducks. A dozen of them are consumed every day, almost eating up all the ducks near Zindu. It is a pity to waste duck down, so Jiyan asked my mother to help collect all the duck down. Then she moved her mouth, and Grandma took action. After a few days of hard work, she actually made these 2 finished products. For this reason, Mrs. Li deliberately did not burn the Kong and slept on a duck-down mattress all night, which was really warm. She wished she could make another set of duck-down jackets and trousers for the marquis, but it was a pity that there was not enough duck-down. You should know that both Lao Si and Daong could take turns to come back to rest, but only Ho Ye stayed at the camp. On such a winter day, the camp doesn't even have a fire pit, so I don't know how to suffer. That afternoon, Li Yong came back on horseback. No matter how restrained Huanayang was, she still had a smile on her face. That night, the couple naturally had dinner at Li's house again. Although they are not related by blood, Li Yong really regards himself as the fifth son of the Li family. When you come back from a trip, you must come over to say hello to Mrs. Li and have a reunion dinner. Happy days always pass by quickly, and in a flash, 3 or 4 days pass by. Tao Hongying went to the restaurant to cook. Huanayang, sister-in-law Lu, and sister-in-law Sun and several women from the village came to Li's house to help decorate the new house. Although the bedding and wooden utensils were all prepared by the Peng family, the window paper needed to be repasted and the Kong mat had to be replaced with new ones. Every place must be wiped and all dust must be swept from the rafters. Jiyan is rarely well behaved. He runs around to help deliver small items, which earns praise from the women. At this moment, there was a sudden noise outside the yard. Mrs. Li looked over and saw that it was Jiaran and several other children who had returned. She hurried out happily and asked, "Is this the college's winter vacation?" "Grandma. Grandma, I miss you. Grandma, I want to eat your steamed custard." The boys surrounded Grandma, one hugged her arms, another hugged her waist, wanting to hang on her body. "Ouch, ouch, Grandma's old bones can't bear your tossing." Old Mrs. Li knocked on each one angrily, but her smile became more and more ear to ear. Jiaran looked around and saw Jiyan coming out of the house. He hugged her and gave her a big kiss. He then yelled to his brothers, "Stop making trouble. Be careful of tripping Grandma." The boys dispersed and came to the sister again. "Sister, have you missed your brother? My brother brought you sticky cakes. Let me hug you, let me hug my sister too." "Oh, don't grab it, don't grab it." The boys really didn't know how to express their joy at going home, and they wanted to make a huge noise. Jia Huan and Jia 11 still put their hands together to make a sedan chair, carried their sister and ran all over the yard. Jiyan was so frightened and happy that she hugged her brother's neck tightly and kept screaming. Brother Li and Brother Cat also followed behind with a smile, and soon got into the west room. Jiaran was still sensible and helped Grandma into the kitchen together. Mrs. Li wanted to make a fire to steam custards for her grandchildren. Shui Yun wanted to help, but Jiaran refused. He rolled up his sleeves and lit the fire while chatting with his grandma. "Let's talk about the interesting things about the college, and let's talk about the third uncle and the third aunt who are cleaning up the small courtyard and won't be back until tomorrow." Old Mrs. Li's men were busy, and the smile on her face never stopped. In the west room of the main house, Brother Cat has quickly locked the door, and then quickly climbed onto the Kong. Two young men, too young and too young, sat in a row, all looking longingly at the sister in front of them, all smiling. Jiyan also happily opened her purse and took 4 candy balls. The boys cheered and quickly lowered their voices for fear of being heard by outsiders. "Don't eat it yet, there are still good things." Jiyan waved her little hands, ran to the end of the Kong, and opened the lid of the box. Using the box to cover herself, she took out a few cantaloupes from the space. The boys were getting more and more happy, and they didn't bother to wash it. They just wiped it on their clothes and started eating it. When Brother Cat saw that his sister refused to eat, he thought she was dissatisfied with the unwashed cantaloupe, so he picked up the cantaloupe, licked it with saliva, rubbed it on his clothes, and then stuffed it into his sister's hand, laughing and shouting. Said, "It's clean, sister, eat it." Jiyan hugged the cantaloupe while countless crows flew above his head. She wants to say, she's not thirsty, she's not hungry, she doesn't want to eat. But her brother watched helplessly, so she could only pick up the cantaloupe and take a big bite. "Eat, eat, this is not a flavorful cantaloupe, this is my brother's full love." Not to mention that the children in the house were having fun, it was just that Mrs. Li's egg custard was coming out of the pot, and there was a knock on the courtyard door. Hui Niang and others heard the commotion and happened to finish their work, so they went to open the courtyard door. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 443. Chapter 443 A Gift That Cannot Be Rejected. Standing outside the door is a middle-aged steward in a blue coat and cap, who looks very respectable. Seeing someone coming forward, the middle-aged steward raised his hands and asked, "Excuse me, is this Zhongshan uncle's mansion?" Huanayang and others are used to walking around the Li family, so they don't think the Li family is special. After all, they get along so well and are so close. Hearing the account banned so suddenly, she was stunned for a moment before reacting. Huanayang quickly responded, "Yes, this is the Li family. Please tell me, sister-in-law, that I am the steward of the Guo family, and I am here to deliver congratulatory gifts," the middle-aged steward said very politely. Of course Huanayang and others couldn't make things difficult for him, so they quickly called Mrs. Li. At this time, Li Zhensheng, Li Laoer and others were not here, so Jiaran accompanied his grandma to meet the guests. The middle-aged steward was asked to drink tea in the main room. He didn't seem surprised that the Li family's cousin's house was so simple. On the contrary, he was very respectful. It turned out to be Mr. Guo. He heard that the Li family's grandchildren were getting married, so he specially sent a congratulatory gift. The gift is not that expensive. It is just an uncommon cookbook, a set of the 4 treasures of the study, 2 pieces of ingredients, and 2 boxes of snacks. It can be said that such preparations can be seen as careful preparation. Old Mrs. Li actually didn't want to accept the congratulatory gift from the Guo family, after all, it was too unpleasant in the first place. But the rules for holding happy events do not include gifts and guests, otherwise it will be unlucky. She thought for a while and said, "How are Mr. Guo and Xiao Wenhao in good health? If they are not busy, please come to our house for a wedding drink in a few days." The middle-aged steward quickly responded with a smile, "Thank you, madam, but our old man is feeling a little unwell, so I'm afraid he won't be able to come. But Master Wenhao's academy is on holiday, and when the time comes, I will definitely come to the young master's house for a wedding banquet." Old Mrs. Li breathed a sigh of relief quietly. It's good that Mr. Guo is not here. Guo Wenhao is also a poor child. He has not done any harm to the Li family. On the contrary, he plays well with Jiyan. He has also studied in the academy now. It would be good if he came over and let his grandsons entertain him and talk more about the academy. After a few more gossips, the middle-aged manager took his leave. Jiyan and several brothers were called out to eat egg custard. Jiyan was also a little surprised to hear that the Guo family sent congratulatory gifts. But if you think about it carefully, with the current status of the Li family, the Guo family is only flattering and should not have the courage to make calculations. So, she ate it with the tender and smooth custard. Earlier, there was only one child, Jiyan, at home, and Mrs. Li found it too lonely. Sometimes she even felt that when she sighed, she could hear the echo in the house. But the children really came back, and she got a headache again from the noise. Jiaran is okay. He studies whenever he has free time and is very quiet. Jia Huan was busy because she was getting married. Occasionally she would blush and hide without saying anything when teased. But the remaining boys, led by Jia Yi and carrying Lu Yang, as well as Jia An, Jia 11, brother Li and brother Mao, almost tore down the roof of the house. Go to the valley to soak in the hot springs and have a water fight. Go to the mountains to dig out bird eggs, and trap rabbits and pheasants. They even cut open the frozen river surface and lay on it to fish. As a result, no fish were caught, and because the river was filled with hot springs, it was not so frozen, so they all fell in. Fortunately, the river water was not deep, but it was enough to soak their jackets and trousers. When the north wind blew, the coats and pants of the 6 boys were frozen and stiff, not like popsicles. At this moment, they were stripped of their clothes and pants, wrapped in blankets and sat on the edge of the big kong, sneezing from time to time. Old Mrs. Lee was so angry that she really wanted to find the pipe pot and knock them all over the head. Tao Hongying cooked soup, 1 bowl per person, and poured it down quickly for the boys. Jiyan hugged the jar of preserves and followed her mother with a smile. The boys drank the soup and wrinkled their noses because of the spicy taste. Then they opened their mouths and waited like baby birds for their sister to feed them. Jiyan was evil-minded, so she pinched a piece of candied fruit and put it to her brothers' mouths, then suddenly took it away, causing the brothers to stretch their necks and scream, but they didn't dare to let go and grab it. Because they were all naked, and they were all gone when the quilt fell. Jiyan laughed so hard that she wanted to roll on the bed, but her mother slapped her in the face and said angrily, "Okay, don't make trouble with your brothers. Give them some candied fruits quickly, and you can hide in the east room, be careful they spread the cold for you." Good News sticks out his tongue and quickly feeds him. The boys drank soup to sweat, ate candied fruits, and felt drowsy while wrapped in big quilts. Old Mrs. Lee was cursing, but she actually felt more distressed. After finishing her work, she pulled the quilt for this one and stuffed a pillow for that one, and then she took her granddaughter out. It happened that Li Lao-san and Zhao Yuru brought Sanshu and his family back from Luoan. Zhao Yuru was startled when she heard that the children had fallen into the water. She ran to the house and saw that the boys were sleeping with their bare legs exposed. She was also very angry and funny. She said to her mother-in-law, "I'm not talking about how many Jian and Jia Huan have. I'm just talking about Jia Yi and Lu Yang. Tong Jia Huan is only 1 or 2 years apart. They should be looking at each other's wives in other people's homes. But he still gets into trouble and plays around all day long. Isn't it?" Old Mrs. Lee was also amused. "I see, when it comes to having a grandson, we still have to rely on family happiness. If we count on a few of them, I'm afraid we have to wait until the year of the monkey. It's rare for a big family to get together, so of course they have to make something delicious." That night, the Li family's dining table was almost crushed. Jiyan was also happy that her third uncle, her mother, and her brothers were back, so she contributed a lot of good things, not to mention vegetables and fruits, and she even took out a large piece of beef from the refrigerator in the small courtyard. Tao Hongying cut 2 radishes and stewed them. When they came out of the pot, she sprinkled some chopped coriander on them. The boys drank the soup with water and sweated from the heat. They slept on the hot bed all afternoon, and when they got up they were alive and kicking. Let alone the wind and cold, there is no congestion at all. I have to admire him. This silly boy has a lot of firepower. Dr. Zhang and Uncle Zhao were also invited over, as were Li Yong and Hui Niang, Lu Biatu and his wife, the village elders, and Aunt Wu San's family. They came and joined together, and the 2 tables were almost crowded. Risked. But no one disliked it, but the smiles on their faces couldn't stop at all. To live life, it's fun to be lively and lively. Especially Uncle Zhao, as they are older, what they like most is that there are so many people and it's so lively. It's like watching the children making trouble. They are several years younger and full of strength. Not only is the food delicious, but the strong wine is also more intoxicating. In a blink of an eye, the Peng family would have someone come to deliver wood utensils and make the bed the next day. The night before, the family had to prepare food for the guests. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru lit oil lamps, and took Grandma He, Shui Yun, Shuiling and Dong Mei to work in the kitchen. Zhao Yuru felt sorry and said, "When the family reunion is over, I will ask him to cook a table of delicious dishes to thank you. Everyone has been tired for his marriage." Tao Hongying said with a smile, "No matter what my sister-in-law said, You took care of Jian as if she were your own son. I am busy with Jian, and I am as happy as my own son getting a wife. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 444. Chapter 444, Marry a wife to celebrate the new year. And he, Shui Yun and others also nodded, and he echoed, our family is kind and the masters are kind-hearted. We eat well and wear good clothes every day. If we don't do some work, we really have no shame living at home. Yeah, Shui Ling nodded vigorously, I eat 2 bowls of rice at one meal, and my mother thinks I can't eat it, but the old lady is afraid that I won't be full every time, and she wants me to add another bowl. Our family is so good, I don't even want to go back to Zhenjiazhuang. Children are just talking stupid things. You have been here for a few months, why don't you go back and let your family see it and have a good reunion year? Tao Hongying glared at Shui Ling in anger, causing Shui Ling to stick out her tongue. Shui Yun smiled honestly and made a request in a low voice, Fourth Madam, my father likes ducks. When we go back, can you please roast 2 ducks for me? I can pay for them. Okay, Tao Hongying agreed immediately, we also need to eat at home, and we have to burn the oven once, so it's easy to bring 2 more. Also, don't mention the money. You have always taken good care of Fu Niu, or I am also thinking of giving you something since you want roast duck, it will save me the headache of choosing something. Shui Yun quickly thanked him, everyone laughed, and his men became even busier. At this time, there was a sudden sound of horse hoofbeats outside the courtyard. It turned out that it was Mr. Marquis and Li Laozi who came back with a few soldiers under the moonlight. Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying hurriedly prepared the food, while Mrs. Li and others welcomed Mr. Ho and Laozi into the house. Jiyan was tired from playing with her brothers during the day and had just fallen asleep. Now she was rubbing her eyes, hugging her father, and sitting next to the Marquis and yawning. Mr. Ho rubbed the little girl's hair and took out a fist-sized luminous pearl from his arms. Even if there is candlelight in the room, it cannot cover up the faint light of the night pearl. Jiyan was so happy that she jumped into her arms and almost drooled. Although scientific research in previous lives has shown that night pearls contain radiation, it is easy to get sick if you stay close to them for a long time. But no one can resist such bright and beautiful oversized pearls. At best, you can just put it in some space later and take it out to play with occasionally. Jiyan made up her mind and held onto Yemingzu even more. Mrs. Li always felt that it was too precious and asked the Marquis, should such a good thing be sent to the palace? The Marquis waved his hands indifferently and said with a smile, this was taken out from the palace. I heard it was the favorite of a princess from the previous dynasty. I sent it to the temple and offered it for 49 days, which eliminated all the cause and effect. Just got it back. Mrs. Li really couldn't laugh or cry when she heard this. The emperor is also pitiful. Even the good things will be taken away by your cousin. From now on, if we have good things at home, we must give more to the emperor, otherwise we will feel really sorry. Everyone laughed, and Li Zhensheng said, don't worry, mother, wait until I go to the south to have a look and bring back some good things. Soon, Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru brought the food, 2 large bowls of shredded pork noodles, poached eggs, and a plate of pie, plus 2 delicious side dishes. Master Ho glanced outside, and Zhao Yuru said, Master Ho, feel free to eat. The soldiers have asked Dong Mei to send soup noodles and salted duck eggs. Mr. Ho thanked him and started eating. Jiyan hugged Yemingzu and sat between her father and adoptive father, rubbing a bite of shredded pork here and splitting a bite of egg yolk there, very busy. Actually, she wasn't hungry at all, but the food tasted particularly sweet. You know, what she eats is not just food, but also love. Early on the next morning, the young and old in the family got up quickly, swept, wiped, and made a fire to cook. Even the people in the village carried brooms and swept all the roads and paths in and outside the village clean. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Mrs. Lu came over in a carriage and brought two boys, Zhyman and Jiaja, with her. Mrs. Kui had been waiting for a long time. She picked them up and went to Li's house together. Mrs. Lu has nothing to do at home and is also thinking about taking a hot spring bath. This time she plans to stay at Kui's house for the night and have a wedding banquet tomorrow. Zhyman and Jiaja were very happy when they saw Jian. They were like separated comrades who finally found the organization. They were so happy that they wanted to jump 3 feet high. Mrs. Li was afraid that the boys would get into trouble, so she simply sent them to the hot spring valley to have mischief. Soon, the team delivering wood from the Peng family arrived, led by the wives of the two gentlemen from the academy. They all have their parents and parents-in-law at home, and they themselves have children. Therefore, they are often invited to be the blessing person and help make the bed for weddings. Practice makes perfect, and it didn't take long for them to decorate their new house. Mrs. Li came forward, accompanied by Zhao Yuru, the mother-in-law, and Princess Jiyan, who was in charge. After entertaining the two women for a lunch carefully prepared by Tao Hongying, the two women and the stewards who carried the wooden utensils all received red seals, and returned to Luoan with a satisfied gift from the Li family. The Li family breathed a sigh of relief and had a rest for the night. The next day they would be even busier. Jia Huan brought a team to welcome him early. Jia Ren, Jia Yi, Lu Yang, Xiu Ji, and Ji Min all dressed up and accompanied him to build up the momentum. Come and go, the distance is not short. The wedding team finally came back in the middle of the afternoon. The Peng family is not very prosperous, but the family still has some foundation. In addition, Peng Wenjuan's mother left all the dowry to her daughter. So, Peng Wenjuan's dowry amounted to $48, which was not very luxurious, but definitely not shabby. Jia Huan blushed and pulled off the red silk, led Wenjuan in, bowed to heaven and earth, then sent Wenjuan into the bridal chamber and took off the hijab. The bright red wedding dress and red gold jewelry made the bride look even more beautiful. Not to mention that Wenjuan was already pretty and lively, so dressed up like this, she looked like a fairy. Jia Huan's eyes widened and he wanted to say something to comfort Wenjuan, fearing that she would not be able to adapt to the new environment, but he was born with a stupid mouth. Even after practicing in the restaurant for so long, he still didn't know what to say at this time. What's good? Hui Niang came in from outside with good news. Seeing Jia Huan like this, she smiled and came to the rescue. Jia Huan, go out and propose a toast. I'm here. Jiyan also patted her chest and promised her brother, brother, you go and do your work. I will accompany my sister-in-law. Don't worry, I will have fun with my sister-in-law. Jia Huan blushed because of the fuss, rubbed his sister's little head, and quickly ran away. Huaniang asked Xiaoyu to close the door, and then helped Wenjuan take off her wedding dress, take off the heavy jewelry, and change into more comfortable home clothes. Wenjuan shyly thanked her, but didn't know how to address Huaniang. Huaniang said, from now on, just call me Aunt Yang. Your mother-in-law is busy greeting the guests, and your fourth aunt has to take care of the banquet. I am the only one who will take care of you. Wenjuan heard Jia Huan talk about the situation at home, and immediately smiled and said, Auntie, thank you for your hard work. No need to worry, it's just a trivial matter. Hui Niang shook Wenjuan's hand and said with a smile, the whole family welcomes you, don't be afraid, just get familiar with it gradually. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 445. Chapter 445, Don't cause trouble, but never be afraid of trouble. At this time, Shui Ling came in with a food box and said with a smile, Master Jiawen was afraid that the young lady would be hungry, so he asked me to bring food over. After saying that, She called Xiaoyu again, "Sister Xiaoyu, come and eat too. I'll bring your share." Xiaoyu was a little surprised. She didn't expect the Li family to be so thoughtful. They were afraid of making a fool of themselves on the road, so they didn't eat or drink last night, and now they were almost hungry and dizzy. Huaniyang helped and quickly put out the food. Wen Juan also wanted to greet Huaniyang, but Huaniyang refused to eat, but Jiyan sat down to accompany her sister-in-law and ate the delicious food. In the courtyard outside, the banquet was very lively. Jie Huan, the groom's official, could not avoid being drunk. Fortunately, Jia Ren, Jia Yi and Lu Yang were helpers and stopped him a lot. Guo Wenhao sat at the same table with Ji Min and Jiu Ji from the Lu family. He was a little taller, but he still looked quiet and shy. At this moment, he was eating and looking outside. It was not until Jiyan came running with his swollen belly that he smiled. Jiyan saw that his skin was pale and it seemed like he could see blue blood vessels, so he took chopsticks to pick up food for him. "You need to eat more. Only when you are full can you grow strong." Guo Wenhao smiled and whispered back, "The doctor said I'm not sick, but I'm too thin." Jiyan nodded and said seriously, "Then you will always bask in the sun from now on, and also learn Bajuan and the like, so you won't be so thin." Guo Wenhao nodded when he heard the seriousness. Finally, he took out a small wooden monkey from his arms and handed it to Jiyan. "This is for you. Our old uncle in the village made it. I have many. Let me share one with you." He didn't take the good news seriously. He took it and played with it for a while, then asked, "Who did you come with? I will pack some delicious fruits for you to take back and eat slowly." Guo Wenhao thanked him and smiled with his small white teeth, which was much more lively than before. Zhaiman and Jiujiza were eavesdropping and eating. They always felt that there was too much vinegar in the cold dishes, which was so sour. Xiaja was younger, so he shouted, "Sister Funiuer, I want to eat the fruit too." Funiuer gave him a look. "You and my brothers were lying on the bed last night, secretly eating fruit. Don't think I don't know." "Huh, you were secretly eating fruit behind my back." Xiuji giggled and said defensively, "Your fruits are delicious, it's not enough if I eat a few more." "Sure, I'll go find Uncle Lu later and ask for fruit money." The good news came so smoothly that Xiuji was so frightened that he quickly begged for mercy. "Let my dad know that it's time to deduct my pocket money again. My dear sister, please spare my brother this time and come back later to buy you candied fruits." "Okay," Jiyan raised her chin proudly, "when you go home, I'll bring you some fruits too." "Oh, thank you sister. I knew my sister was the best." Xiuji smiled brightly and quickly picked up the meatballs and put them in the good news bowl. "Try it, sister. My aunt's cooking is the best. I have never tasted it so delicious." "Meatballs." Jiyan rubbed her belly, reluctantly ate the meatballs, and then praised her madly. Tao Hongying had been preparing for the first happy event in her family for less than half a month. Needless to say, the dishes were praised by everyone. Even Mrs. Lu ordered a table of private dishes to entertain a few of his old friends, and even asked for orchids by name. Li Zhensheng of course agreed. Today, Beiwuxiang's private kitchen is only highly praised among wealthy businessmen. Mr. Lu is also leading the way for the Li family's private kitchen to be promoted to the literati circle. When night fell, the guests had eaten and drank enough and left one after another. Guo Wenhao got on the carriage and hugged a basket of fruits given by Jiyan. The smile on his face never stopped. The city gate has been locked, so Mr. Lu and Lu's Haiheng also stayed at Kui's house. Mr. Wen also arrived at Kui's house on the pretext of drinking sober tea with the old man, but no one knew what the old man and the young man were talking about. The women in the village are never lazy when working for the Li family. In the huge yard, in just half an hour, the tables, chairs, and benches were tidied up, and the pots, pans and paper were cleaned. Because she has many grandchildren at home and likes to entertain guests, Mrs. Lee spent a sum of money to customize 200 sets of bowls, plates, chopsticks, round tables, and long stools. On weekdays, these things are kept in an empty room in the school. No matter it is the Lee family or any other family in the village who has something to do and has a banquet, they can go and get it. At this moment, the old and young men helped deliver the tables, chairs, basins, and bowls, and then they all went home. The Lee family courtyard finally became quiet. Mrs. Lee went over to see her grandson's daughter-in-law and saw that she had finished her meal. Then she kicked out her smiling grandsons and closed the door tightly. 3 days before the bride comes to the house, it is customary for the bride to wash her hands and make soup. But Wen Juan's craftsmanship is average, and the Lee family's kitchen is different from the one at home. She has to prepare meals for more than 20 people at once, which makes her a little busy. Tao Hongying saw her and asked her to cook millet porridge, while Grandma He and Shui Yun helped with the rest of the work. Wen Juan was touched and embarrassed at the same time, and secretly made up her mind to learn more in the future. At the dinner table, the old lady heard that her grandson's wife had cooked millet porridge, and she praised it for being fragrant and sticky, which made Wen Juan's face turn redder. After breakfast and tea, everyone sat together and talked lively, and then the Lu family returned to the city. Before getting into the car, Mr. Lu chatted with Li Zhensheng and said, "The incident involving the third son of the Wang family has caused quite a big fuss. Everyone seems to be somewhat sympathetic when talking about it. You should be more cautious and prudent in your actions. Besides, the eldest and second eldest son of the Wang family are coming back. The second eldest son is just mediocre, but the eldest son's scheming and methods are good, so you should be more careful." Li Zhensheng smiled and bowed his hands in salute. "Thank you, Uncle Lu, for remembering us. Our family has never caused trouble and is not afraid of trouble. The Wang family has plotted against us again and again, and even wants to hold our Li family in their hands and shake them to pieces. The foundation of Golden Beach. If our Li family doesn't repay a little bit, I'm afraid outsiders will think that the Li family is easy to bully, and they will look for opportunities to pounce on us and take a few bites. I would rather let outsiders be afraid of the Li family than let everyone dare to bully the Li family." Mr. Lu nodded. Not only was he not angry because of Li Zhensheng's rebuttal, but he was more appreciative. "It's a pity that your father passed away early. Otherwise, I really want to learn from him about how he taught such an outstanding child. You 4 brothers all not bad. As long as we remain united and behave appropriately in the future, why worry about the Li family not being more prosperous?" Uncle Lu was so complimentary. "In fact, we brothers suffered too many losses and fell too many, and we gradually grew up." Li Zhensheng's words were not self-effacing or polite. None of the 4 brothers grew up in a honeypot. They have endured a lot of wind and rain, and naturally they have become more resilient. After seeing off a few members of the Lu family, Mr. Wen was going back to the city soon. There was nothing going on at home, and there was another court meeting tomorrow, so Li Lauer simply got into the carriage with Mr. Wen. The two of them visited calligraphy and painting shops, bought a few new books, and then returned to the small courtyard. Early on the next morning, he got up before dawn and went out as usual. Standing in the court hall, Li Lauer was still secretly yawning. Finally made it to the next court, and others became energetic and followed the others outside. As soon as he left the palace gate, he was stopped by someone before he could find his carriage. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 446. Chapter 446, All the books of sages have been read like crazy. Li Lauer looked at the 3 old men with white beards standing opposite, with a puzzled look on his face. He had just entered the court not long ago, and he didn't know much about civil and military officials. He could barely recognize an official position. He couldn't tell the names of these three people. He only knew that they were from the Hanlin Academy. The Hanlin Academy is a place where nobles, and almost all the first scholars of the imperial examinations, have settled here. After studying for a few years and then being sent out to serve as an official, it will be very easy to climb up the ladder after you come back. Isn't there a saying that not every Hanlin member will join the cabinet, but every important minister in the cabinet has entered the Hanlin Academy? Therefore, the Hanlin Academy is the Qing Shui Yamen, but no one dares to offend it. But the three people in front of them are special cases. It is said that they have been studying in the Hanlin Academy for decades and have not been promoted. I don't know if it's their problem or their persistence. Li Lauer is just an idle earl. He thinks that there is nothing that can stop these three people from crossing the road, and he still has an angry look on his face. Three adults, this is. Li Lauer looked puzzled. As soon as he asked, he was interrupted by the three elders opposite. An old man with a white beard asked loudly and full of indignation, "Uncle Li, the Li family has been favored by the emperor and climbed from a small peasant family to its current position. Shouldn't they be grateful, unite with their colleagues, and work together for Tianwu?" "Why do you say that, sir?" Li Lauer asked instead without answering. The white-bearded old man became even more angry and responded, "You, the Li family, have almost killed the morale of Wang University because of your personal grudges. I really can't stand it, so I have to talk to you. You can't go all the way in life, otherwise it's your own fault to fall into death." Li Lauer was unhappy when he heard this and sneered, "Sir, I can't even call you by your name. I'm really not familiar with you. I don't know in what capacity you are teaching me a lesson like this. You keep saying that I have done everything right and am in deep trouble, so, sir, tell me, what wrong thing have I done that makes people angry? I told you, you have damaged the morale of Wang University." The old man glared, very dissatisfied with Li Lauer's slight. "Master Wang is sick. What does that have to do with me? Did I hit him or scold him?" Li Lauer became more and more impatient. Seeing that the officials around him stopped to watch the fun, he raised his voice even more. "Old man, you said that our Li family has received great favor from the emperor, so we entered the court from a farm gate. Yes, our Li family is extremely grateful to the emperor, and we are also loyal to him. Every melon and every fruit we plant, the first bite is given to the emperor first. Although our strength is meager, our whole family, and even the entire Rujintan, are all devoted to the emperor. But you also said that you should be patient and unite with Grand Scholar Wang. This is outrageous. Does it mean that the emperor is so kind that we should not be loyal to the emperor, but should be loyal to the great scholar Wang? Is the great scholar Wang the emperor?" You. I didn't mean that." The white-bearded old man was anxious and wanted to defend himself, but he couldn't. On the contrary, the companion next to him said, "Uncle Li is really sharp. We were just kind-hearted and came to say a few words, but we made you so unhappy that you actually labeled us as disloyal and disrespectful." "Disloyal and disrespectful," Li Lauer sneered and replied, "the boss is right, you are just disloyal and disrespectful. When a certain Wang University scholar is sick, you came to me for no reason and scolded me for not uniting with my colleagues. Got it? Where do you start talking about this? Is it the fault of me, Li Yisheng, who gets sick in the future? I have been granted the title of Zhongshanbo by the Emperor's grace. Which of you is higher than me? You actually point at my nose and yell? This is disrespectful. Now the barbarians in Jiangbei are eyeing you, and the treasury is empty. You don't want to share the emperor's worries and contribute to Tianwu. Instead, you come to attack your colleagues without any reason. You are disloyal. How can such disloyal and disrespectful people come out and speak nonsense? Are you officials of Tianwu or dogs raised by the Wang family?" The faces of the three elders could no longer be described as black, They were so red that they turned purple. You, you. You are so vicious. This is the entrance to the palace. In full view of everyone, the news will definitely reach the palace and reach the emperor's ears. How can they face the emperor in court? This is going to cut off their official path. Li Laoer, however, flicked his sleeves and said disdainfully, "You can only live a good life. If you don't work as a good official, you have to be someone else's lackey." No wonder the old saying goes, all the books of sages are read into the dog's belly. It's absolutely true. With that said, he turned around and left. When he found Mr. Wen in the distance, they got into the carriage together. Mr. Wen smiled and patted Li Laoer on the shoulder. "Haha, I knew that if you don't go and help, you will never suffer." That's right. These old guys think very highly of themselves and want to give a few words to everyone they meet. He has already gained a bad reputation in the court. Previously, the reputation of the Wang family has plummeted because of your eldest brother's incident. Wang Baoyi has made great efforts to win over them, but they don't know what the sky is and the earth is high, so they came here to seek your misfortune today. Li Laoer rolled his eyes and said, "They are just picking on the weak. They look at me for bullying. That's what they planned, but it's a pity that they hit the wall." Mr. Wen was overjoyed and responded, "I'm afraid no one in the court will dare to bully you in the future. You are such a talkative person." Li Laoer spread his hands and said with a helpless smile, "I also want to respect the elders, but they don't behave themselves." The two chatted and laughed, and the carriage quickly arrived at the small courtyard. After changing into official uniforms, Li Laoer went back to Broken Gold Beach. This is also the last major court meeting before the year, and the next one will be after the 15th day of the first lunar month. Thinking about it, he has a month's vacation, which is really happy. On the way, he bought a lot of snacks, candied fruits, candied roasted chestnuts, and candied haws for his nieces and nephews at home. Sure enough, as soon as he got out of the car, he was surrounded by his smiling nephews, blocking the way in. The good news was wrapped like a cotton ball and carried on Ji Yi's shoulders, smiling so brightly that he showed his small white teeth. Li Laoer quickly took down all the snacks and food and gave them to his nephews as money for his trip. Thereupon, the boys howled with joy. Some were holding snack boxes, some were grabbing candied haws, and some were carrying candied chestnuts. In short, the division of labor was clear and they quickly ran back to the west room to share the spoils. Li Laoer was left hanging in front of the door, his hands empty, funny, and helpless. Old Mrs. Li saw her at the door and called out, "Second brother, what are you doing standing there stupidly? Come in quickly. Mom is making soup, drink a bowl quickly." "Hey, here we come." Li Laoer hurriedly entered the door and couldn't help but sigh, "It's great to have a mother." Unfortunately, he was not happy for a while. After drinking a bowl of soup, he was kicked out by his mother. "Let's go to the valley for a walk. I have to make a list of New Year's gifts at home and I'm busy." Old Mrs. Li waved her hands, then called her two daughters-in-law and one grandson-in-law to discuss. Li Laoer had no choice but to go out. With good news, he ran out of the west room, put his feet up and stuffed a candied fruit into the second uncle's mouth, and then entered the east room with a smile. When Mrs. Li saw her granddaughter coming, she hugged her and put her on the kong. She asked, "Fu Niuer, let's do the math. Each family's New Year's gift requires 7 or 8 baskets of fruits, and preferably vegetables 10 baskets. What do you think?" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 447. Chapter 447 Zhenjia's Wang's New Year's Gift. Jiyan nodded and agreed happily, "Okay, listen to Grandma. I also prepared some for my adoptive father to send to Uncle Huang." During this period, Jiyan played during the day, but was not lazy at night and was busy in the space. She was afraid that using the nursery too frequently would waste the land, so most of the vegetables were planted in those few acres of ordinary fields. In other words, I was really greedy, so I raised dozens of watermelon and cantaloupe seedlings in the nursery to ripen them. There is a great harvest in space now, and it will be a good time to harvest in a few days. Not only was it enough for gifts at home, but she also prepared a copy for her adoptive father. She was even planning to cash it out and exchange it for some white, plump, and cute silver locks. Wenjuan sat aside and listened to her grandmother's discussion with her mother-in-law and aunts. She only answered with a smile when asked about her. At this moment, she saw that everyone was asking for her sister-in-law's opinion, and she couldn't help but be curious, with a hint of curiosity on her face. When Zhao Yuru saw it, she explained to her daughter-in-law, before, Mr. Ho gave Fu Niu a farm with skilled craftsmen. Even in winter, vegetables and fruits are often delivered. These things are relatively novel, so the family prepare for the New Year's ceremony. Only then did Wenjuan understand and responded, "Thank you, mother, I understand. Don't worry, just ask if you don't understand anything. From now on we are all a family, so don't be polite." Zhao Yuru took the opportunity to give her daughter-in-law some advice. Our family doesn't have any messy rules. There is only one thing you must remember. It's about family matters. Don't talk to anyone, not even your father, understand? Wenjuan nodded quickly. "Mom, don't worry, when I get married, I will become a member of our family. Our family is more important than anyone else. My father has a concubine and my brother who was born as a concubine. He will marry a real wife in the future and may have children. But I am just a married girl. I can live up to my conscience and do not forget to fulfill my filial piety." Everyone felt sad when he said this. Mrs. Li patted Wenjuan on the shoulder and comforted her, "You're right, he's a good boy." Tao Hongying also said, "At noon, we will steam jujube steamed buns and stew sauerkraut and big bones. If you are not tired, help me." Wenjuan smiled with red eyes and replied, "Okay, fourth aunt, please teach me more, and I will get up to make breakfast later. You just got married and it's time to sleep. You don't have to get up early to cook. You can just help me at noon and night," Tao Hongying said smoothly, but Wenjuan blushed. She quickly stood up and said, "I'll make some tea." Everyone laughed when they saw her shy and running away. Jiyan held 2 candied fruits in his mouth, his cheeks were bulging, and he moved around, spitting out a core from time to time. He smiled with his big eyes narrowed, really like a squirrel. Tao Hongying couldn't help but nod her daughter's forehead. "I'll let you rejoice for a few more days before New Year's Eve, and I'll cut off all the snacks and candied fruits after New Year's Eve. You're not afraid of becoming a ball of fat, but you also have to be careful about rotten teeth." Jiyan quickly grinned and showed her little white teeth. Although she is not used to the willow branches and green salt here, she works hard to brush her teeth in the space every night. She doesn't want to experience the world's traditional method of tooth extraction. It's a pity that Tao Hongying didn't accept this trick at all and made up her mind to cut off her daughter's source of happiness. Fast forward, it's July 8 again, the New Year's Eve has passed, smoke is curling up from the roofs of every house, and the fire in the kitchen continues all day long. Steamed jujube steamed buns, frozen dumplings, sticky cakes, fried twists and oil cakes, fried meatballs, steamed bean buns. The women wished they had to sleep, and spent all day and night cooking various kinds of food. Life was not easy in the past, and even if I wanted to, I didn't have the chance. Now the family is not short of food, and they have even shared the year-end bonus money, and their wallets are about to explode. If I don't cook more delicious food, I would be sorry for this good mood. The school in Sujintan finally had a holiday, and the naughty boys went crazy and had fun in and outside the village. Mr. Zhang has no family, so he still has to stay in Zinkan during the new year. But the Li family had already told him to celebrate the new year in the courtyard without preparing anything. Families are also vying to send things to the school. Your family made fried meatballs and asked your children to bring a plate. My family made steamed jujube cakes and had to send a few pieces too. Mr. Zhang brought the little book boy Gilai with him, and he had endless food to eat every day. Therefore, Mr. Li was very upright and handsome. After only a few days, he was fed the word greasy. Fortunately, Mr. Zhang woke up quickly and hurried to the hot spring valley to practice dog pawing every day. In this way, he finally succeeded in maintaining his image. Similarly, Mr. Zhang is not the only one who wants to maintain his image, but also the little girl Jiyan. Lately, every day, she delivered 7 or 8 baskets of vegetables and a basket of fruits to her uncle's restaurant. Even if the uncle is very busy and cannot come back at night, he will always let Jia Huan's newly married nephew come back. As a result, Jiyan can earn a sum of cash almost every day. In addition to the village's dividend money, her adoptive father's share was also given to her, which made her so happy that she could wake up laughing while sleeping. During the day, if she hadn't pursed her lips tightly at all times, she would have been afraid of laughing out loud and turning into a little lunatic. On the 28th day of the 12th lunar month, pigs are killed in the village. The big white pigs over there in the pig house, the boars have contributed countless offspring to the surrounding villages, while the sows have given birth to more than 20 piglets, which are now grown up enough to be killed. After discussion, the village chief and others decided to kill both ends. The Peng family and the Lu family both wanted to give some away, but also left a pig leg for the marquis, and sent it to the palace together with the vegetables and fruits from the Li family. So, this morning, 2 big fat pigs were pressed on the wooden table, and white knives went in and red knives came out. Before the boys could grab the pig urine, Yeshan and Dong Mei drove back from Zhenjiazhuang. They sent Shui Yun and Shui Ling back last night. Jiyan, a small business owner, naturally wanted to express her gratitude to the farmer, so she took out the reward and took it away with the car. Jiyan has never been to Zhenjiazhuang, so I don't know what is missing there, but life is nothing more than basic necessities, food, housing, and transportation. So she packed 16 pieces of the fine cotton cloth she had purchased earlier. The big fat pig that was raised hard in the space was also caught. In addition, there are 2 barrels of seafood brought back from the restaurant, and an additional 200 taels of silver. These things are not much, but they are her thoughts. Shui Yun and Shui Ling carried the roast duck, wore new coats and skirts, and brand new silver-winged butterflies on their heads, and went home happily to celebrate the new year. Obviously Zhenjiazhuang was very grateful to the host family, because the 2 carriages brought back by Yeshan and Dongmei could hardly hold them. A box of furs of various colors, 2 red deer, 2 wild boars, 2 pairs of bear paws, 6 pairs of pheasants, 6 pairs of wild rabbits, a cage for ordinary hens, a cage for big red roosters, a cage for ducks, and a cage for goose, 2 barrels of live fish, 2 buckets of eggs, 1 bucket of duck eggs, and 1 bucket of goose eggs. There are also 2 bags of dried mushrooms of various colors and 2 bags of peanuts and melon seeds. 1 bag each of red beans, mung beans, soybeans, and rice beans. In addition to these, there are several account books and a small box 1 foot square. Everyone in the village came to help kill the pig, and they were really envious when they saw it. The village chief uncle smiled and said, "Fu Niuer's village is really good. At least they are hard-working people. They can plant in the fields, swim in the water, and raise things at home. They are all so complete." "Yes," Uncle Zhao responded, "there are some good hunters in this village. Look at the red deer and wild boar, they all shot through the eyes." Old Mrs. Li didn't want people to pay too much attention to Zhenjiazhuang, so she hurriedly packed up and moved things into the courtyard. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 448. Chapter 448, The powerful unite and become as rich as the enemy. When Jiyan saw Dongmei waving her hand, she hugged her grandma and said, "Grandma, you keep these things and give them to others or eat at our house. It's up to you. I'll go to my foster father's yard to play for a while." After saying that, she raised her legs and ran to the next door. Master Ho has been in the city these days, and the yard is very quiet. Dongmei put the account book and the small box in the side room and went to work. Leave good news and open the box. The golden light is dazzling, but tears flow from the corners of your mouth. You must visit Zhenjiazhuang if you have the chance in the future. What kind of fairy village is this? The benefits in 1 year are almost as good as those in the Hot Spring Valley, which is a full 400 taels of gold. They are already some skilled craftsmen. If we add her fantastic ideas, wouldn't it be possible to join forces with powerful forces and become richer than the country? Wahahaha, get rich, get rich. Not to mention the good news, which was happily rolling around on the bed next door, even Mrs. Lee couldn't open her mouth from ear to ear in front of the piles of New Year's goods. My third daughter-in-law, take Wenjuan to pickle the duck eggs and goose eggs. After the Chinese New Year, you can take some with you when you go back to Luoan. If you can't make it in time for lunch, make some porridge for the boys. 1 salted egg for each person. Dismissed. Mrs. Lee smiled and assigned tasks to her daughter-in-law, and then said, "Hong Ying, some wild boar meat will be distributed to the villagers later. We will keep 1 venison in our family, and the other will be divided between the Lu family and the Peng family. Mr. Wen and there is no need for Jinro, they all agreed to come to our house to celebrate the new year. Also distribute some dried mushrooms to each family in the village. Put a handful when stewing the chicken, it tastes good. It's a pity that mushrooms don't grow on the 2 hills of our Sujintan." While talking, Mr. Ho and Li Laosi came back from the city. Seeing that the old and young ladies at home were busy packing things, the Marquis smiled and said, "Is this Yeshan and Dongmei back?" "Yes, Mr. Marquis, Zhuangzi has given away a lot of things. I wonder if the farmers have left more for themselves? They have been busy for a year, and they should have a good new year." Mrs. Lee is kind-hearted, and always I felt that I had reaped the rewards of other people's hard work for a year, and I felt bad. The Marquis waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, Auntie, in the past few years, Zhuangzi also gave me this gift. They know it, and it's enough for the new year." After finishing speaking, he changed his subject and added, "I asked for leave from the emperor. During the Chinese New Year, you and Fu Niu don't have to attend the palace banquet. There is no need to go to the palace to kowtow on the first day of the new year. You can just spend the new year at home." Sure enough, Mrs. Lee was even happier. "Seriously? That's great. It's not that we don't respect the emperor, it's just that we don't understand the rules and are afraid of making mistakes. Let Auntie teach us well in the new year, so we have to learn the rules." After chatting for a few more times, Jiyan ran back from the next door after hearing the news. She threw herself into the Marquis's arms and asked over and over again, "Father, foster father, have you given the New Year's gift to Uncle Huang?" "I gave it away." "Your uncle is very happy." The Marquis hugged the fat girl and sat on his lap, smiling. "He also said that those good things were not given to him in vain, and your little niece also knows that she cares about him." "Then, what?" Jiyan blinked her big eyes, glanced left and right, but she couldn't see anything good in her adoptive father's hand, so she drooped her head in disappointment. The Marquis laughed heartily and took out a pair of mutton-fat jade ruyi from his arms. Each one was about the size of a palm, and the whole body was milky white. Only the peony flower carved on Ruyi's head was slightly red. The sunlight outside the window shines through the cracks in the window and onto Ruyi, making it radiant and beautiful. "Oh, is this for me?" The good news is like a seedling that has received manna, and it immediately sprouts. She hugged Ruyi and jumped up and down with joy, causing Mrs. Lee to catch her with her hands and scold, "Little ancestor, be careful, don't drop such a good thing." Jian held Yuruyi in each hand, as if holding dumbbells, he, shaking his head and tail, danced a dance of demons, and then ran away. Needless to say, he ran away and hid secretly. Everyone was laughing, but no one said they wanted to get Yuruyi. When Juan saw this and once again had a clear understanding of how favored her sister-in-law was, the Marquis glanced at her and felt relieved when he saw that her eyes were full of envy and curiosity, but not jealousy. It was New Year's Eve in a blink of an eye. Because the Marquis, Li Lauer and Mr. Wen all had to go to the palace for a banquet in the evening, the Li family's reunion dinner was held at noon. It had been discussed in advance that the village chief and Aunt Wu would also eat with the Li family this time, so they came over early. Including Uncle Zhao and others, Mr. Zhang brought Gu Li, Mr. Wen brought Wen Hai, Mrs. Kui brought sister-in-law Qiang, and Dr. Zhang, Li Yang's family of 4, totaling nearly 40 people. Only Lu Baiatu's family didn't come because they wanted to have a family reunion with the addition of a fat boy. The Li family directly opened 4 tables for banquets. 2 tables in the East Room were occupied by women and children, and 2 tables in the West Room and the main room were divided among the old and young men who liked drinking. Tao Hongying and Jia Huan tried their best to cook all their favorite dishes, and even included new dishes that had never been introduced in Cyclamen. Everyone was satisfied with their meal, especially the old men, who were all half drunk, their faces glowing red, and they were very happy. Looking back at the hard work of this year, and looking forward to the prospects of the new year, everyone will be serving the wine bowl more frequently. I was worried that the Marquis and others would enter the palace, so the banquet would be dispersed before dark, otherwise I might be able to keep drinking until midnight. The young and old men found a big bed and slept soundly to sober up. The women watched over the naughty boys while making dumplings and chatting. Jian ate very much to avoid feeling sleepy and fell asleep on the kong. It seemed that she was woken up by her grandma not long after. Eating dumplings on New Year's Eve is a habit they brought from the north. My family likes to eat stuffed meat, but good news is aiming for stuffed leek and egg, which is especially delicious on such a winter night. Jian ate a dozen of them in one go and felt completely refreshed. After everyone fell asleep in the middle of the night, she tossed and turned again, her big eyes as wide as bells. Simply, she got up quietly, lay on the windowsill, listened to the sound of wind and firecrackers outside, and secretly sighed. Another year older, he is already a 5-year-old boy. If possible, she would rather never grow up. There is no need to face the wind, frost, rain, and snow of this world, no need to face those intrigues, no need to face hypocrisy, true evil. She just wanted to protect her family, be a little pistachio, and live a warm and happy life. It's a pity that time will not stop because of anyone. At dawn, a new year has arrived, and a new year has arrived. The naughty boys of Jia An's family had no idea what their sister was struggling with. They were looking forward to this day with red eyes. They got up early, changed into their coats and trousers, and before they even opened their eyes, they started kowtowing to the old men and uncles to pay New Year greetings, and then collected the New Year's money. Jian followed behind and was helped up before he could kneel down. She is the princess, who dares to accept her courtesy, not to mention that everyone is reluctant to let her knees touch the cold ground. As a result, Jian's wallet bulged again, and she finally smiled. It's a pity that when the Marquis, Li Lauer and others came back from the palace, she wilted again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 449. Chapter 449, Having someone to rely on when you are young, and having something to support you when you are old. Li Lauer was the first to step through the door, and the good news rushed over like a cannonball, shouting loudly, "Happy New Year to my second uncle, my second uncle will be promoted and rich in the new year." Li Lauer smiled happily when he heard this. He squatted down to catch his fat niece, but did not hug her. He only took out a pair of small red gold fishes from his purse. "Hey, lucky money. We Funiers must also be healthy in the new year, Kong, grow up happily." Jiyan was so happy that she picked up Xiao and was about to kiss her second uncle. Unfortunately, Li Lauer avoided it and said, "We Funiers will be big girls after the Chinese New Year. We can't be so casual in the future, otherwise others will say you don't understand the rules, you know." Jiyan pursed her lips and suddenly felt that the little goldfish in her hand no longer smelled good. Just as Mr. Ho and Mr. Wen came in from outside, she turned around and ran over again, shouting loudly, "Father, foster father! What's the matter? Why are we, Funier, unhappy?" Mr. Ho also squatted down and stretched out his hands to gently hug Jiyan, but did not pick her up. This made Jiyan even more depressed, and finally couldn't help crying. "I don't want to grow up. It's not good to grow up. My second uncle won't even dare to hug me. I still have to learn the rules. I don't want it." Master Ho is such a smart man. He immediately understood what was going on. He was so funny and helpless, and quickly wiped the fat girl's tears. "You can't cry today on the first day of the new year, otherwise you won't have good luck for the whole year. We Funier have grown up, this is a good thing. You can wear more beautiful dresses, wear more beautiful jewelry, and go out to play in the future, right?" Jiyan stopped crying and nodded slightly. The lack of childhood in her previous life left a knot in her heart, and she felt that no matter how much she did in this life, it was not enough. To others, growing up may be something they look forward to, but for her, growing up means separation, loneliness, and being helpless. Even, no one can understand her fear and resistance. Mr. Ho still wanted to speak, but suddenly he understood something in the eyes of the little fat girl. He hugged the fat girl, put it on his shoulders, and stood up directly. "Although we Funier have grown up and it's hard to hug you anymore, my adoptive father can carry you and carry you. Even though you are 80 years old, in the eyes of your adoptive father and family, you are still a child. Let's pretend outside, but at home, we can do whatever we want. If we don't want to grow up, we won't grow up. We don't want to learn the rules. Let's not learn. No one can wrong us Funier. The worst is, we will follow our adoptive father in the war from now on. We will be like the tiger girls of the generals. If anyone dares to say one more thing, we will whip them." Funier sat on her adoptive father's shoulder. Seeing that her second uncle and Mr. Wen were both smiling fondly, she finally started to laugh too. It seems that growing up is not a terrible thing. Because whether she grows up or not, the people who love her will still love her. Old Mrs. Lee came out of the house and smiled helplessly when she heard what Mr. Ho said, "Just pamper this girl. What if you really use a whip to bully others in the future? Then bully others, it's better than being bullied by others." Li Laozi followed and said. He stepped forward and changed the girl from the marquis's shoulder to his own, and ran around the yard, giggling with joy at the good news. Li Lauer was afraid that he had broken his niece's heart, so he tucked the skirt of his gown into his belt and carried his niece around the yard. Then came Li Zhensheng, Li Laosan, Jiaran, Ji Yi. The young and old men of the Li family expressed their love and support for the Li family's baby bump through their practical actions. In the end, Mrs. Li was afraid that her granddaughter would get a headache from the wind, so she snatched her granddaughter into her arms and then called everyone into the house. The villagers brought their children to pay their respects and kowtow in the new year one after another, and Li Zheng from De Weishu, De Wangzhuang, and Xiaoangzhuang also came. The Li family invited them to have tea and snacks, and the children also gave them New Year's money. 6 silver peanuts per person, enough for 1 penny. The boys were so happy that they gathered together to think about what to buy. Life in the village is good, and the hawkers and salesmen walking along the streets are willing to visit every now and then. But they did not dare to enter the village and only shook their rattles at the entrance of the village. The children bought 2 sesame candies at a time, and they were so happy after just a few snacks. Obviously, after the new year this time, the first salesman who comes to your door will get rich. It was the second day of the Lunar New Year in a blink of an eye. It was the day to return to her parents' home. Mrs. Kui got up early and went to the city to go to Liu's house. Her parents are dead, but Mrs. Liu, her uncle, takes great care of her, and Mr. and Mrs. Liu's Haiheng really treat her as their own sister. On days like this, the Liu family must be particularly happy when she goes over to have a meal. Jia Huan also accompanied Wenwan back to the small town of Luoan, taking a look at his empty yard. Mr. Wen took a ride and went back to the city. His family's affairs are a mess. He hid for 30 and the first day of the Lunar New Year. If he doesn't go back on the second day of the Lunar New Year, he is afraid that it will bring disaster to the Li family. Neither Zhao Yuru nor Tao Hongying had their parents' families to return to, but Mrs. Li loved her daughter-in-law so much that she called her sons and handed them over to days cooking errands so that they could have a good rest. Don't worry about sewing, eating snacks, chatting with others, or simply taking a good nap. Compared to many other families, the men of the Li family love their wives very much. They do not hit or scold them, share the work, and discuss things with them when they encounter problems. However, they still have never been in the kitchen. If you make porridge, you can still handle it, but it is definitely a big problem to prepare lunch for the whole family. Just when he was feeling worried, Li Yong came to ask for help. It turns out that Huanyang wanted to recognize the village elders as her adoptive father and mother. Earlier, Li Yong was not at home and Huanyang was pregnant, so she stayed at the village chief's house. The old couple took good care of Huanyang, even more than their own parents. Huanyang has always been extremely grateful, and she also feels sorry for the old couple who have no children around to fulfill their filial piety. Yesterday, she discussed with Li Yong that the couple regards the Li family as their husband's family, and they also want to recognize another natal family for Huanyang. They are willing to treat the village elders as their own parents and are willing to provide for them until they die. Early this morning, they took the child back to the village chief's house and told the story. The village elder and his wife were so happy that they were still crying at home until now. This is a great event. The young and old men of the Li family immediately said they were going to congratulate them, and then went out in a swarm, making old lady Li and his daughter-in-law laugh so hard. They are not going to congratulate, they are justly avoiding labor. Soon all the men, women, and children from the Li family arrived at the village head's house. Uncle Zhao and other old men were already drinking tea. Lu Biatu and his wife next door also hugged the fat boy and came over to congratulate him. Aunt Wu took old Mrs. Li's hand and cried excitedly before she could speak, "Sister, you said that I am such a sick and useless person, and I don't even have any blood left. I originally thought this would be like this for the rest of my life, but I never thought that today I would get such a good daughter and 2 grandsons. I really want to kowtow to God 10,000 times. Mrs. Li understood her excitement and gratitude, and kept half hugging her, patting her back and persuading her, "Old sister, they say you reap what you sow. Today's great event is that you and the village chief do good deeds earned by virtue. Huanyang and Daong are good children who know how to be grateful. You can rest assured. From now on, you can just coax the grandson and take good care of him in his old age." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 450. Chapter 450. Mrs. Li's life is complete. Aunt Wu nodded repeatedly, pulled old Mrs. Li and said gratefully, "Old sister, we have enjoyed the blessings of your family. Both Daong and Huanyang were rescued by your family, and it was easier for us in the end. Oh, sister-in-law, you can't say that. You two are doing your best to take care of these two children. Besides, Daong said, our family is my husband's family, and your family is my mother's family. You see, our two families are like this. How wonderful it is to have two children to rely on, Mrs. Lee said while laughing. Sister-in-law, our good intentions are rewarded. Yes, yes, Aunt Wu wiped away her tears, stretched out her hands to hug the twins, and gave one to Mrs. Li. She couldn't help but show off, look, how good these two children are. Not to mention the excitement in the house, Huanayang and sister-in-law Lu brought a few women from the village to cook. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru wanted to help, but they pushed them into the house to eat melon seeds and gossip. Fortunately, there is no shortage of food during the new year, and it is easy to organize the banquet. Soon, the food will be ready. Daong and Huanayang held their two children in their arms, kowtowed to the village chief and Aunt Wu, and called them father and mother. Aunt Wu directly took off the silver bracelet from her wrist and put it on Huanayang's hand. The two women held each other's hands and cried. One will have a mother in the future, and the other will have a daughter to take care of until the end of her life. Everyone hurriedly tried to persuade him and said congratulations one after another. The meal was lively and cheerful, and by the end it was getting dark, and the village chief was so drunk that his tongue was stiff. He talked about the hardships in his youth to the happy days now, and he cried with tears all the time. Everyone tried to persuade him, and finally put him to sleep in the west room. Li Yong stayed with him, fearing that the old man would need a drink of water at night. Hui Niang took her children and slept with Aunt Wu in the east room. On the 5th day of the lunar month, Shui Yun and Shui Ling came back from home. Both of them looked good, and they had gained weight again. It was obvious that they had eaten good food at home. They brought 2 sets of clothes and 2 pairs of shoes to Mrs. Li and Jiyan, both of which were sewn by their mother. Firstly, it is to honor the boss, and secondly, it is to thank the boss for treating the 2 little girls well. The 2 little girls have been talking about Mrs. Li and Miss Li for the past few days since they came home, and they have to say a few words from time to time. Looking at the clothes, food, and drink of the 2 of them, it was absolutely clear that they had not suffered any harsh treatment or suffering. Parents, who wouldn't be happy for their children to enjoy happiness? So, feeling grateful, I worked all night to make these needlework. In addition, Shui Yun and Shui Ling also brought Jiyan some of their specialty food. One of the noodle fish is particularly delicious. It should be a prepared batter with bean paste added into it, poured into the mold, and baked until golden brown on both sides. It tastes soft and sweet. Jiyan ate 3 of them in one go, which made Shui Yun and Shui Ling extremely happy. Of course, the most important thing is that they came back with 2 young men, Zheng He and Zheng Feng. Zheng He and Zheng Feng are brothers. They are already married in their 20s. Like Shui Yun Shui Ling, they were selected to practice martial arts since childhood, but they also studied for several years. This time, I followed the order of the Marquis and came to the Li family as an errand. The Li family usually doesn't have many people at their disposal, only Yeshan. Sometimes they are too busy to do anything. From now on, the 2 brothers will live in the courtyard of Yes house and be available whenever they are called. It happened that on this day, the chief steward of the home mansion also came to the door, and also sent the long-term entourage that the Marquis had arranged for Li Lauer. This long-term attendant is called Yetong. He is in his 30s, has a short and chubby figure, and smiles when he speaks. He looks kind-hearted, but the shrewdness in his eyes cannot be ignored. Mrs. Li heard that Yetong was familiar with the situation of every family in Kyoto and knew all the rules of the court. She couldn't wait to give Yetong to him. Whether you call her timid or cowardly, as a mother, she really wants to gather all her sons in Broken Gold Beach and not let any of them go out. She just wants to live a stable life. But there is no way. The eldest son has to do business, the second son has to go to court, the third son has to take care of the children's studies, and the younger son has to go to war. Her heart wished it had been divided into 4 parts, each one worrying about one. Among them, the one she worried about the most was her second son. After all, in the court, a wrong word could lead to disaster. She and the whole family can feel at ease when a person who is familiar with the court and understands the rules is by her son's side. The chief steward of the home mansion was left to have lunch and then return to the city. The Marquis often comes to the palace these days, so he stays at the Marquis mansion at night. He has to keep an eye on him at all times, for fear that the servants will not serve him well. In this way, the Li family has 3 more people. Although they live in the Ye family courtyard, Mrs. Li always feels that her home is too small, and the construction of a second courtyard must be put on the agenda as soon as possible. That night after dinner, she gathered her children and grandchildren together to talk. It will be the 15th day in a few days and the weather will get warmer. Let's prepare the materials early and build the backyard quickly. Mrs. Li hugged her granddaughter and saw her granddaughter playing with her Yuruyi. For fear of falling to the ground, she turned her granddaughter to the side of the table and continued, "When the yard is finished, I will take Hongying and Funiu with me. After my son moves in, I will leave the rooms for the third wife and Jiehuan, and then the front yard will be left to you, so you can do whatever you want." Of course Li Zhensheng's brothers had no objections, so Li Zhensheng said, "Mom, I was not at home before, so I did not contribute to the construction of this yard. Now that it is finally time to expand, I must provide money to prepare stones and wood." Li Laoer also rushed to say, "Then I will be responsible for finding someone to build it." Li Laosan and Li Laosi were still talking, but Li Zhensheng stopped them. "The third son just needs to take good care of the children. The fourth son has to go to the military camp from time to time, so don't worry about home." Li Laoer also said, "Brother is right. Let's arrange it like this first. Brother and I can't take care of it. Then we can ask you to come back and help us." In other people's homes, building a house is a big deal, and many people even turn against each other because of it. But in the Li family, the 4 brothers settled the matter with just a few words. Mrs. Li was relieved to hear this. With such a son, she really wanted nothing more in life. Jiyan also hugged Yuruyi and laughed. Thinking that after the new yard is built, she will be able to live in a room by herself in the future, which will make it easier to enter the space. It was the 8th day of the Lunar New Year in a blink of an eye, and the college was about to start. Li Laosan and Zhao Yuru were ready to take the children back to Luoan. Orange Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying helped with the preparations, loading large and small bags into the carriage, wishing they could move their entire family there. The naughty boys were also reluctant to leave. It's true that they haven't had enough fun, and even Jiaran has languished. It is natural for all people to rely on home. No matter how old you are or how far away you are, home is where your heart aspires. Mrs. Li sighed when she thought that her home would become deserted, but the future of her children was important. She hugged her grandchildren one by one, pushed them into the car, and told them, "When you get to the college, study hard. When February 2nd, Grandma will bring a big pig head to see you." End of this chapter.